Now, like I mentioned, today is all about the arrears and compliance workflow. So we are going to get started with just the settings and looking at how you can manage templates. We're also going to look at the arrears workflow and how you can use some of our automations and customize them to work for your business. And then we'll flip over to compliance and we'll look at the compliance automations. So today is all about helping you guys get the most out of our workflows, helping you get out of any spreadsheets or the old manila files you might have and get console working a bit for you. Now, before we get started, we do want to just have a quick poll here. We want to find out what you guys use, and then we're going to check in at the end and see if there's anything that you would want to use as well. So popping that out there, love to hear from you, see what you guys use. For those of you guys who have just started jumping in here, any questions as we go through, pop it in the chat. Anything we cover that you're not going to be able to take notes on or catch up on, everything's in the help center and it's recorded. So after today, you will be able to rewatch it. Looks like we've got a lot of you using a lot of the system. That's awesome, but not a lot of people using compliance automations. Arrears workflow, always the most popular. Good to see. And this is giving our stragglers a little bit of time to join us. Okay, I am going to end that and share that now. So you can see there that arrears workflow most popular, not everyone using our automated reminders or customized templates, and compliance seems to be the less loved one or the less used one. Hopefully that will change after today. Okay, so I'm going to jump into console now, and we are going to get started just with our templates and the arrears settings before we jump into the workflows. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a tour down to settings. Just keep in mind that not everyone can access settings. So if you can't access settings, usually your office administrator. But there's two things we're going to look at here. We're going to look at arrears calculation and then your customized templates. So popping into settings into Office, this is just a note on how arrears might work within your database. Now, there are two different types of arrears calculation. There are rent arrears by daily calculation, and there are rent arrears by full rent period calculation. So if your rent arrears might look slightly different to mine, just note that I've got it on full rent period calculation. And what this means is that if I was to have it on a daily calculation, arrears numbers and days in arrears will reflect that daily value. So if I pay $700 a week in rent, on day one, I am going to be $100 in arrears. Day two, I'm going to be $200 in arrears. Day three, I'm going to be $300 in arrears. Now, with this method of arrears calculation, this takes into account part payments. So if I have paid $100 part payment, then I will only be considered in arrears once I have gone into day two of arrears. So that one breaks it out to a daily value. Rent periods by full period, really simple. The first day I fall into arrears, I owe $700. This one here, part payments aren't actually accounted for when it looks like they're in arrears. So it just ignores part payments when calculating the number of the days. Doesn't mean they don't exist. They are absolutely there, just when they're counting the days or the number of days the tenant is in arrears. So two options there. I've got mine by full rent period. If you're looking at your screen and it's slightly different, might just be that you're on daily calculation. Now, the second thing we'll just have a look at here is our templates. So this is our mecca of communications, and this is where all of the automated reminders or messages or templates will sit in your account. Now you can see here that we do have a few already in there. So these flags, mean that it's being used by a workflow and is part of an automated communication, or may be part of an automated communication. I can see the name, I can see the recipient and the category. And from the 3 dots, I can edit the template and update the messaging. So if I wanted to come in and update what this says to be more reflective of our office process, it's really simple. I just click straight into the email, start typing, or into the SMS, whatever it is you're doing. And you may be able to then use your merge fields. So just underneath, we have all these merge fields, and these are optimized based on the kind of template you're working. So I'm working on arrears templates. I've got arrears and invoicing information available to pre-fill. I can pop it, click it in, and it pulls through a merge template for me to preview. Further down, I can also put in attachments, but don't put anything that you don't want to have go out automatically, particularly when we're talking about automations, and you don't want as a one size fits all. This is a one size fits all communication. Good to pop that kind of attachment there. Getting rid of that, just going to hit save. Whoop. And now I've got a little example. Now, just going to have to delete that again for me here. And then resave. Now, if you want to create new ones, so one of the good things and one of the benefits of the Arrears workflow is you can customize how your messages go out, whether you use SMS, whether you use email, whether you use our defaults or create your own. So if I wanted to create my own, all I needed to do is hit add new. I could pick the channel. So is it an email and SMS? If it's for a tenant or an owner. So if I wanted to build some arrears comms for communicating with my owners easily, just notifying them that potentially a tenant's in arrears, I could do that as well. I could pop in a name and a category. See here, I could pop it into arrears. And then it's very simple. I would be popping in my email, I would be popping in my body. And again, under that, I have all of those merge codes. I can click in and see what it looks like. I can also show an example. So if I wanted to see what that email looks like as I'm building it, clicking show example will highlight that for me straight away, and I can sense check things as I'm going. And if you have gotten to the point where you have a lot of arrears communications or you have a lot of communications and you want to drill down, always just use your filters here, and I could filter to a particular category, allowing me to focus on what I'm looking at here. Now you can see I've got a lot. So 2 things that are really simple there. Your arrears calculation, just keep in mind you have the daily or the full period, and your communication templates. And your communication templates are gold for customizing and managing automations within your preferred process and workflow. So with that real quick snippet, let's get into our arrears workflow. Now we're going to do the basics and we're going to look at the automation. Then we're going to look a little bit at how you might manage your day with arrears. So I'm just going to start at the dashboard first. Now, one thing a lot of people don't tend to think about, but it's just a very small thing that can help you in your day-to-day, is how they optimize their dashboard. So if I wanted to focus on my arrears as my first thing in the day, I would definitely want to make sure that my arrears widget is right up the front. I can change the order as well. And I could drag and drop certain things in. So if I wanted to bring in my commercial arrears, if I was commercial focused, I could also drag that up and that becomes number 1. So right here, I've got my arrears. Clicking through will take me to the arrears workflow, or I can navigate via properties, residential, and again, I've optimized my order here. So just via change order. So my arrears are the very first thing I come in and do in my day. Now, from your arrears, so just a little recap on the basics for those of you who might be fairly new to Console. Up the top, I've got it in all portfolios, but you can just work in your portfolio or in your team portfolio. You have quick filters. So if I wanted to look at just my rent 1 to 3 days in arrear, if I wanted to drill down into my 8+ days or particular invoice arrears, I could just quickly select, and then that will populate a list below. That list will show me a high level information about what's been happening. So what property and tenancy, what's their rent and invoice arrears, and what details, so what communications have been sent. So an email was sent 2nd of the 8th, they are paid to 11th of the 7th. An SMS was sent and they are paid to. So really simple, you can do filters, you can also export. Now, over the side here, we have that setup automation. So there are sometimes a few myths around automation. They think that you have to use SMS or you have to use email or you have to have it go every day or you can't change it. The automation here is very flexible. Now, it can be built around how you prefer it to be going out, and it can be separated for rent versus invoice arrears. So if I was to pop in and have a look at my rent arrears here, I'm going to click on Edit Preferences. I'm going to start right at the top with the time of day I want it to send. So the first thing you might want to think about here is, when do we do our receipting? Do we have deft? Do we do bulk receipting? How are we managing our payment of rent? If my trust accountant works 10 till 2 every day, and the first thing they do is go and clear their receipts at 10 o'clock, I might want this to send after midday. So she takes 2 hours to clear, give her 30 minutes for a coffee break just in case. From 12:30, we're sending our arrears notices. What you then also might want to do is think about how you want it to send out. Now, if you love SMSs and you think it's the best way and you want to just get those SMSs going, you might pop in daily SMS. You might start the reminders 1 day after they fall into arrears and stop 7 days later. So this is a really good nailing the hammer in of pay your rent motion. You don't have to send it on every day. So you might go, well, I won't send it Mondays. We have a really big catch up after the weekend, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we'll send it out. Or you've got your days in arrears. So days in arrears is a little bit more flexible, allows you to build a workflow, gives you the control over the templates as well as the channel that is used. So if you can have a look at mine, I'm just going to delete a few. Once a tenancy is 2 days in arrears, an email is sent using the rent arrears template. 3 days, I send an SMS. 5 days, I send another SMS, and then 7 days, I send an email. If I wanted to add a new communication, I just select when I want it to go, I select the channel, and I select the template. Again, popping in, I might go after this, 11 days, SMS, and again, I'll do another urgent. Popping in, we'll go to 13 days, we'll send email, and we'll go notice might be issued. Now, I could stop there, or if I get to 15+ days, it actually just starts sending daily. But I'm going to pause it there because by then I want to actually pick it up and I want to start looking at the vacate or the termination process. Hit save, that's now on, the system's going to be sending it out. One thing to note is that it is a one size fits all for your system. So this is going to work for every portfolio here. So keep it really agnostic, make sure it's working for your business, make sure it helps all of your property managers if you're setting this up, and then we can pull in our individual processes around how we call, how we bring in notices, how we have to go through certain termination. If I pop over to invoice, similar thing, I can hit edit preferences. I can select what time of day it sends. So this one I'm sending a little bit later. I can pick daily SMS or days in arrears, and I can pick exactly the same workflow. What day, what channel, what template. Now, you can have your rent on and your invoices off. You can have both on, very flexible. So now my automation's on. It's now working for me. I don't need to do too much. But what you might want to still do is think about how and when you would manually intervene with your arrears. Now I'm going to pop into my slightly larger arrears ones here, my 8+ days, and it looks like I've got quite a few tenancies in arrears. And popping down, I'm just going to click in here to Michael Sol, and we're going to have a look at the arrears drawer. Now, the arrears drawer gives you the ability to do more work with a tenancy in arrears, whether it is reviewing the timeline, whether it is sending a message to the owner, or pausing arrears notifications. Now, up the top, 3 separate sections. Timeline, this is everything that's happened. So this could be any notes I've added, anything else. Tenant contacts, can see a list of all the contacts approached. And from the overview, I can message, I can add new, or 3 dots, I can download the payment history. So for example, Michael here, if he's on a payment plan, here's one that I might want to do some actions with. So let's say I've called him, we've arranged a particular payment plan to help him catch up. Add new, I can add a note. So Michael is on a payment plan. We'll pay an extra $50 week until up to date. Save it, goes into my timeline, stored in my communications history. I might want to message that. So I could message, I could do a rent arrears reminder. So if you're not using automation, you can use that. Or if I click message, I can go ahead and send a message to my tenant to confirm it, or my owner to advise them of what they can expect. So this is where customized templates become really good for keeping up to date with owners as well as tenants. So I could see confirmation payment plan, and then just pop in as discussed or as notified. We've popped in a payment plan. Michael's now going to pay an extra $50 of rent a week. We expect this to be paid out to you and him to be up to date within a certain period. So all in here, all communicated, all tracked. Now, the other thing we want to do is for people on payment plans, for people who we are waiting for arrears payments, perhaps at the end of a tenancy, turn your auto reminders off. They're going to keep going. You don't necessarily want them going to those tenancies. So turn it off, make sure it's in writing, make sure it's tracked in the system. And then down here, you're going to see there's a little pause. And if I filter through over to the side here, I can now filter into my auto reminders disabled. All of these people have now had that disabled. Now, in the arrears drawer, you might have noticed under add new, you can also create a form. So if you have forms providers integrate, that's where you can then create a form. And that is where you can then go ahead and hopefully not, but potentially move towards breaching a tenancy. Now, I can see that there are a few questions. There are people who are talking about the SMSs. Yes, the SMSs do have a cost if you are looking at doing SMS or using SMS, which is a great tool for the 21st century. Turning on things like auto response for SMS, that comes down into your settings. But just a reminder, you don't have to. If you don't want to use SMSs for everything, just don't. You've got that flexibility. Change all your channels to email. That way you're still making the most of console, but potentially not spending SMS money. If you wanted to minimize it, maybe it's that first 2 days, change that first channel to SMS. And then you've got at least one visual reminder for those people who don't read their emails. And then you've got email comms going out. So no need to think about just SMSs here. We can also use email marketing. Or email messaging, I should say, marketing. Okay, and if you need to, you can always come into automation, turn them on and off, edit preferences, update things as they go. So if you want to give it a go for your business, not sure on it, start with a minimal process, flesh it out from there. Now, the other thing you might want to think about is when you use bulk communication. So if you did want to have things a little bit more manual, perhaps for the first 3 days, you didn't follow up with them automated, or perhaps 8+ days, you didn't use automation, you can do bulk communication. So up the top, you've got a bulk selector. You can deselect, and then you can also sit message. You can select who you want to message, so my tenants, and you can use the standard templates. So I might put in my notice may be issued. It will pull through all of the merge codes. It's got a reply to, and at this point, I can add an attachment as well from my desktop. Hit send, and it's just sending out directly to them. So very flexible workflow designed to help you manage your day, designed with automations to allow you to have an arrears process in place, whether that is email or SMS follow-up, designed to allow you to pause auto reminders for people who might be on payment plans or people who are vacated within the drawer. So if you were to click through, you've got the ability to message an individual tenancy or ownership, add new, and you can add a note or create a form from your integration. 3 dots here, download a payment history. You've also got your timeline, all your communications, all your forms. So you can see I've sent a form here, any notes, any failures. And from the overview, turn your auto reminders on and off. So very clear, very simple. Build your processes around it. Make sure you pop your workflow into the front page, into the right at the front if this is your number one focus, and think about how you want to work with your tenancies and arrears. Now, that's your arrears workflow. Let's have a look at compliance. So compliance in Console Cloud is another area where you can get out of the manual work a little bit. The compliance workflow allows you to easily manage and track your compliance around your properties and owners, and then use automated tools to keep on top of when certain compliance is due. So when compliance gets started, when it sends emails, how certificates get pulled in, and how we can automatically finalize. Compliance over here is, again, one of those areas where we see a lot of people still in the spreadsheets. So what we're going to have a look at is how we can add compliance to a property and owner, how we can then do the automations, and how we can update. So I'm just going to pop into one of my properties here, and I'm going to pop down the page, and you can see here we've got a section for insurance and a section for compliance. Now, under my compliance, I have a few things here already entered, and you can see some of them are either expired or they're all expired, which means they're now going to appear in my compliance workflow. But if I had any new compliance, I could hit add new. I can pop in the compliance type. So it could be my asbestos, it could be essential safety management for commercials, it could be other, any of them. So I could pop in my electrical safety. I could assign it to a certain person. Now this becomes important when we talk about communications, because when we assign it to a creditor or a body corporate or an owner, these are the people who will be communicated to from Console by default. If you don't have your creditor in your system, you can always just add them in. So I'm going to pop in my creditor. I'm popping in McPherson Electrical. I can pop in last expected and my expiry date. So we'll pop that in here for New Year's Day next year. And we've also got our certificate. So you can upload a certificate straight in. It will then allow your system to keep that stored. It will be in your documents, Again, really good area of just saving things. So popping it in, and we will then hit save. Hit save, off it goes, it's stored against the property, and if I wanted to add all of them in one go, so if I'm going to spend some time catching up on perhaps entering them, I can just hit add more, and I can add the next compliance item. Save, off we go, it's logged in. Now, while we're here, also calling out insurance, really great place to add insurance, keep it stored, I should say, by clicking add insurance, selecting your policy, popping in your insurer, and keeping up to date with your expiry. So really good place to just store all of that information. Now, just like our arrears, we're going to come to our residential list. We're going to come across to compliance. And under compliance, you can see here at a glance, all of those quick filters. I can see how many is expired. So I have 11 expired items, all of which is popping down in here. You can see these renew buys. You can see that within 7 days, I've got an additional 2 items expiring. I've got 1 ready to finalize and 4 in which I haven't done anything. So again, really easy for you to click through and filter, have a look in and go, okay, well, definitely haven't done anything. I can see the system is saying no action taken, so we'll look at that. You've got your filters over the side here. So you could look at a compliance type, you could look at a last action, you could look at almost anything and who it's assigned to. So if I'm going and having all my smoke alarms done, they're assigned to a particular creditor, I might filter down if I've got a lot sitting in this list. Now, up the top, we have our automations. Again, automations, the things that are going to help you save your day. Now, what we can do here is we can select when the compliance starts. So 30 days before expiry, I want compliance added to the list. Now, I want to then automatically email, I should say, 30 days before expiry, and I'm going to pop it in at 11 a.m. just again so that I can come in and check it if that's my workflow. Now down below, this is where those templates are going to send to. So earlier I mentioned really important who you've got it assigned to. Your owner. This is the template if they are inspecting smoke alarms. This is the template if they are inspecting or responsible for other areas of compliance. We then have the request accreditor and body corp. So these are going to be dependent on who we've put against the property. Coming down further, we have our reminders. So if everything happened the first time, we could all put our feet up for a very, very long time, but it doesn't. So we are then going to pop in a reminder. So after the initial request, 14 days later, we can send emails after 9:30. And again, all those templates are sitting there. Our certificates. So if I have smoke alarm certificates uploaded, they are going to automatically send to the owners when finalized. Pool and spa compliance. So if you want to send that to the tenants, you can also select that to automatically send to the tenants when updated and the expiry is completed. And I've also noted that I'm just going to automatically finalize the item. So when I'm working through, as things get finalized, once I've popped it in the system, the compliance will automatically move out. Now, it's a very simple automation, but very effective. So you set when you want compliance to start. I've got it at 30 days. Note that some legislation does apply here. So around smoke alarms and lease dates, this will apply depending on where you're based. When you want the initial request to the assigned to go, when you want a reminder to go, who you want certificates to go to, and whether you want it to finalize. So simple, but effective. Now, once that's done, it just falls in. And down below, you can then see all of those items. So if I clicked in here to 18 Boondar Road, These people have multiple compliance items due. I could flip between them. I can see the pool and spa. I can see smoke alarms. I can see essential safety management. And within this workflow, I can manage and keep on top of the compliance. So even if Console's working for me, I might want to come in here and pop in a message and send it to who it's assigned to or to the owner or tenant. So let's say I've got confirmation back from my Brisbane pools. They're going to be on site next week. They're going to do a new certificate. I might message my tenant. I might have an automated template already there. Or I might just pop in notice of pool inspection, pop in when it's coming, send it across to them. Now the tenant's notified. Anything that you send, again, the benefit of it is going to be in your timelines and your communication history. I can add a note here. So spoke with Brisbane Pools, booked to do recert, and I can hit save. Viewing that timeline, whoop, didn't quite view there, that's okay. Viewing that timeline, again, will give me clear history of everything I've done. Once the pool guys come back, he said, great, inspected, here's your new certificate. If I hit update details, this is where I can then update and attach new certificates and files. So I'm going to pop in last inspected and next inspected. So they inspected it today, expiring in a year. I'm going to attach a certificate and we're just going to get one we've popped in earlier. Oop. Computer's decided to not compute. Okay, we'll let that have a think for a second. And then once I hit save, once it's uploaded, that compliance item will finalize and it will close down for me. So it will be updated against the property, updated against the owner because there will be a link there. New expiry date, it's going to close down out of that. Now I am just going to refresh my screen here because my internet has decided to stop. And I'll check in on the chat while we do that. And there is some good comments around compliance types. So one of the compliance types in there is other. If you have compliance that doesn't fit into the pre-prescribed list, pop it in the other. And then from there, you'll be able to just enter in the information. All of the compliance workflow will still work for you and you'll be able to continue on. Now I'm going to apologize here because my browser has stopped working. So just doing a little reboot. And while that reboots, I will also pop in. Now, Jake has raised a very good question here that I am going to bring up. So the compliance that we have around our automated compliance is based on what that automation is based on when we want it to start. But there is a little note there that if you have, or if you are in a state where certain compliance exists around your smoke alarms, that will automatically come in around a lease start. So if I just pop up under my settings, smoke alarms will be added at a certain time before the lease start date. Console is customized to where you are, so it will reflect your legislation. So really good question, Jake, really good call out. Now, done a little reboot, we're back working. So I'm just going to hit save on that compliance item. You can see here that once I updated that pool compliance, it's closed down the compliance because it's done. So again, smoke alarms, adding a note, messaging people, viewing the timeline and updating the details. And because of the automation I have sitting on, it will automatically close this once I have updated, added a new expiry date, and potentially attach the certificate, which we would always recommend so it is stored in the system. Save, done. Now, up the top here, I'll also call out that we've got this bulk update. So if you have someone going to do all your inspections in one go, they're doing a bunch of properties or they're working through a whole building, if you hit update details, you can drag and drop your files here, similar to our bills workflow. So you get 100 certificates back. If they're all separate PDFs, drag and drop them in. And then all you're doing is work through your compliance. You'll add your property, you'll add your select the compliance, update when it was last inspected and inspired, and hit save. So you're able to do that again and again and again, saving you a lot of time in your compliance workflow. Okay, so we are just going to recap it, and I can see that there is still questions flowing through. So thank you to Kim and Chris for answering those. So just to recap, compliance, another workflow that you might choose to use your automations on. Under your automation, you can choose when your compliance starts, noting that certain items will fall in based on your state legislation, like your smoke alarms. You can send automatic email requests, which will send to the contact assigned to the compliance. You can automatically send reminders, and you can automatically send certificates and finalize the compliance item. You can use a bulk update here. So if you hit update items, you can throw in as many certificates as you've got, select property, select the compliance, pop in the date and time, and automatically finalize each one. Within the workflow, you can work in individual timelines. So if a property has multiple items to check, you'll be able to click in, view what item is due, message, add notes, and update details. All of this updated gets stored and saved against the property, so that when I come down to my compliance, you can see that that item that I updated has already been cleared off. Now, again, just a quick recap that with these, they are built on templates and communication, and you can set up as many templates as you want in the system to help improve your workflow. And those will be time and date stamped and stored in Console Cloud for you. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and we're going to do a recap, and then I'm going to check in on the chat because I can see there are a lot of questions coming through. So just having a look at what we went through today, we went through managing templates, we went through arrears and arrears automations, we went through compliance and compliance automations and how you can set them up and work for you. Now, some key messages after today's session and some things you might think about is how you customize your automations for your business. Automations are applied across an entire business, but you don't have to use our prescribed templates and you don't have to use SMS or email or both. You can pick what you use for your business. Now, you can also think about when you turn automations on versus off. So you can pause your arrears automations for certain tenants who might be on payment plans, who might be vacated and you're just waiting for a bond reimbursement, or you might pause it because it's that little old lady down the street who you know is not going to read their email, but you're going to have to call every day. Think about the time you put on your automations. So if you're using arrears automations, don't put them on for 9 a.m. Let your trust accountant or yourself or whoever does your receipting come in, let them clear the receipting, do their morning rec, and then complete that before those automations go out. Think about how you would like to then use the manual tools. So if you are bulk communicating with people, if you are communicating manually, what templates do you need in place and how can they be updated? If you have your compliance, make sure it's against your properties, make sure you have your certificates, make sure you have who's responsible for it, make sure you have the due date. And then think about what automation you want. Now, do you want it to just auto finalize for you? So once you've got everything in, it automatically finalizes and updates against the property. Do you want it to automatically notify your creditors to go and, or your owners or your body corp to go and complete certain work? When do you want reminders to be sent? Or do you want to have the control to do it manually, which you absolutely can? So it is good food for thought around how you would like to run it. Now, just calling out, you will be able to review today's recording in 48 hours. And you'll also have access to our help center. So everything we've gone through today is sitting in our knowledge base. So if you want to implement this, pop through to the knowledge base, have a look through it, or you can reach out for one-on-one help. So this is something that I know that we get a lot of questions around. What about it for my business? How can I do this? How can I customize it? Reach out to support. You can start a chat. You can email us, or if you'd like one-on-one training, reach out to training@console.com.au. Now, I'm going to ask the lovely Chris to just pop in a feedback survey on today's training, but hold tight. If you've got a question and you would still like it answered, we are going to keep going through the chat. I'm just going to turn off my camera and make sure we've got all those questions. The lovely Chris is going to put a feedback survey on the training today in the chat. And just a reminder that we are a big interconnected group of products. So if you're using our range of products like Inspect Real Estate, Console, Move Me In, all under the Reap It umbrella, we have integrations and we have workflows between them. Keep that in mind as you go forward and as you look at how you pull it all together, particularly to make your day easier. So thank you, everyone. If you've got an outstanding question, please hold tight. We will look through the chat, make sure we've got them all. Thank you so much for interacting. Love your engagement. And if you need any questions after today, pop through to our support channels.